For so many of you at home, I want to be very clear. This is not about taking away anyone's guns. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21. The fact that the majority of the Senate Republicans don't want any of these proposals even to be debated or come up for a vote, I find unconscionable. I believe the majority of you will act to turn your outrage into making this issue central to your vote. Enough, enough, enough.
Hello, all you beautiful and amazing people. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the show. If you're new to the channel, I'm your host, Hyde. This is Hide and Seek Media, where we talk about news, sports, politics, and so much more. Sleepy Joe says the Second Amendment is not absolute, as he calls for the reinstatement of the assault weapons ban in response to a slew of mass shootings breaking out all over the United States. Now, in recent days, there have been a number of news stories coming out highlighting these mass shootings, and we're going to dive into a couple of them because the media is trying to frame this in a way to give their side a platform to stand on and something to talk about in these midterm elections coming up in November. Joe Biden said it himself that gun control should be one of the top priorities for Democrats who are running in the midterms. Is it kind of coincidental? Does it seem kind of odd to anybody else that all of a sudden we have all of these mass shootings in the news and it's an election year? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I'm kind of weird like that. You know, I wear a tinfoil hat under this nice ball cap sometimes. And so to me, it seems a little odd. So I'm going to get into a couple of stories showcasing some of these mass shootings that have gone on in the country as of late. I'm going to talk about why Joe Biden wants to reinstate the assault weapons ban, why it's a bad idea, and what the end game is in all of this. Now, it might go off the rails a little bit and we might dive into a rabbit hole. So if you want to know what's coming up, make sure to stay tuned all the way to the end of the video. And we're going to get into that in just a second. But before we do, if you guys like the work I'm doing here and you want to help support the channel, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. I list crypto wallets in the description down below that you can donate to. There's also my merch link in the description where you can go pick you out funny political and t-shirts and hoodies. I also have a locals community that you can go join. Now, that's free to join, but if you want bonus content that you'll find nowhere else, you have to become a premium member. And that membership is just $2.99 a month. So it's pretty cheap. You won't even notice it's missing. But if you can't do any of that, the best way you can help support my channel is to hit that share button and smash that like button. Those two interactions alone will show YouTube that this video needs to get more impressions and needs to be shown on more places. And that in turn gets more people watching and gets more people here to my channel. So hit that share button and share this video on all social media platforms. Now, let's get into the first story here I want to talk about from NBC News. So we have this story here from NBC. At least 12 dead in another weekend of mass shootings across America. Attacks in Philadelphia and Chattanooga, Tennessee may have involved multiple shooters, authorities said. The U.S. has had more shooting deaths in the first weekend of June than in the previous 3-day weekend, which ended with Memorial Day. The tally for the weekend violence through Sunday night was at least 12 killed and at least 38 injured in mass shootings defined by the Gun Violence Archive as incidents in which 4 or more people are shot and killed, not including the shooter. See, that part right there is a little telling to me, not including the shooter. I mean, that's still somebody who was shot and killed by that perpetrator, even though it was himself. Why is that person not included? Kind of questionable. During the holiday weekend, 9 people were killed and more than 60 others were injured in attacks fitting that description. Now, you notice they don't say where these 9 attacks happened or these 9 deaths happened, right? We'll get to that in a minute. They go on to report, as Americans debate the possibility of a new gun regulations in the wake of the horrific school attack in Uvalde, Texas, gun violence seemed to continue unabated with the official start of summer, June 21st, and its hottest nights still ahead. Right? Oh my gosh. The most notable violence over the weekend took place in Philadelphia, where 3 people were killed and 12 others were injured, and in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which had its second weekend in a row of mass shooter violence, this time with 2 people dead and 12 others injured in gunfire. A third person died after having been struck by a car. And we're going to get to that in a little bit too. Nevertheless, this article here is just one. Here's another one from Axios. At least 54 injured, 11 killed in 7 separate mass shootings this weekend. And they go on to detail all of these shootings, right? This one here, they go South Carolina. Here's Chattanooga, Tennessee. Philadelphia, and they break it down. Phoenix, West Texas, 5 teenagers were shot in West Texas, Macon, Georgia, Mesa, Arizona. See, it's funny, they keep listing, they listed all of these, right? And it's, all of these stories are to get you guys scared of guns and gun violence, right? Because they're trying to make it seem like this is something that is new to the game. But what they forget is that mass shootings have happened in this country long before it was a country. All of these news stories really sparked off because of the school shooting in Texas, right? In Uvalde, Texas. And that's what they're using as the guise to implement common sense gun laws, like we don't already have those. It's their way of trying to disarm the public without alarming the public, right? So first they've been working at it slowly for forever, chipping away at the Second Amendment, telling you can't own this, you can't own that, you have to do this, that, and this to buy a gun, right? Whereas the stipulations to say get a driver's license is a lot less strenuous, right? It's very, very easy to get a driver's license versus purchasing a firearm, and I'll get into that analogy in a minute. But they wanted to use school shootings, and they focus on these school shootings like it's an epidemic that has broken out over the last 30 years in this country, and that's just not the case, right? There have been school shootings in this country since before it was even a country. There's this from K12academics.com, the history of school shootings in the United States. 1700s, the earliest known United States shooting to happen on school property was the Pontiac's Rebellion School Massacre on July 26, 1764. Now, let me say that date again. 1764. Now, for any of you who don't know, okay, this country was established in 1776. Where 4 Lenape American Indians entered the schoolhouse near present-day Greencastle, Pennsylvania, shot and killed the schoolmaster, Enoch Brown, and killed 9 or 10 children. Reports vary. Only 2 children survived. So, 4 people walked into a schoolhouse and shot 10 people. 4. Now, this happened in 1764. There were no revolvers in 1764. There were no semi-automatic weapons. There were no AR-15s. There were no 30-round magazines. These four people walked in and had to have had at least 2 flintlock pistols each to carry out that crime. And even after that happened, the Second Amendment was still written into the Bill of Rights and passed and created as the Second Amendment, the second most important amendment in our Constitution is the second. My personal opinion is the first, because without the second, you can't protect any of them. But even after that, they still knew to look at the people who perpetrated the crime and not what they used to perpetrate the crime. And that's the problem here, right? They're focusing on the gun and not the shooter. Okay? So I kept bringing up cars and driving and all that because I wanted to bring this up. The Washington Post, right? Deaths on U.S. roads soared to a 16-year high in 2021. Now, prepare yourself because this is going to get a little weird. Road deaths soared more than 10% last year compared with the year earlier, reaching 42,915, according to estimates released Tuesday by federal transportation officials. It was the highest number of fatalities nationwide since 2005. Now, 42,915. That's way more people than that were. That's way more people killed by vehicles in traffic accidents than by firearms in this country. 42,000 people were killed in traffic accidents in 2021. Now, are we getting a driver's license? Are we raising the age to getting a driver's license to 21? Because driving a motor vehicle seems like it should be something that we have a little bit more responsibility for, right? 42,000 people died. Almost 43,000 people died in motor vehicle accidents last year, but we're not raising the age to get a driver's license to 21. We're not talking about passing common sense driving laws because we already have them. And the people that don't abide by them and don't cohere to them end up getting in traffic accidents and not only hurting themselves or killing themselves, but possibly injuring and killing other people. It's the same with irresponsible gun owners. You keep focusing on the gun. You're not focusing on the people perpetrating the crimes. And that is the biggest problem, right? You keep talking about all of these mass shootings that happened over the weekend. You had, like I said, you had this story from NBC News, 12 dead in another weekend of mass shootings. You had this story from Axios, 54 injured and 11 killed in several mass shootings this weekend. And as I went over them earlier, you noticed that none of them said Chicago. 33 people shot, 6 fatally in Chicago weekend gun violence. All but 4 shooting victims this weekend were wounded on the south and west sides. So, are these people not good enough to be rated in Axios and NBC's news stories? Is Chicago not in the United States? I mean, last I checked it was. Oh, But we don't want to talk about Chicago. They have strict gun laws, and we can't use that as an example, right? Oh, and then of course you'll hear all the liberals, oh, there you go, talking about Chicago again. Everyone else goes, Chicago, Chicago. You name one city, oh, Chicago. One city with the strictest gun, some of the strictest gun laws in the country, and more deaths than any other city in the United States. So, yeah, you keep bringing up Chicago because Chicago is a problem. But see, the media won't bring it up because it doesn't fit their narrative, right? It doesn't fit their narrative. It's because their narrative is to scare you, right? You have and that's what President Biden's trying to do.
As I said, as a senator and a vice president, while they clearly will not prevent every tragedy, we know certain ones will have significant impact and have no negative impact on the Second Amendment.
And you have President Biden going out and calling on Congress to reinstate the assault weapons ban from the 1994 crime bill, right? So here's why this is a bad idea. So we go to Wikipedia, right? Of all places, we go to Wikipedia. Excuse me. So we go to Wikipedia and they say, the Public Safety and Recreational Firearms Use Protection Act, or Federal Assault Weapons Ban, was a subsection of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, commonly known as the Crime Bill Act. A United States federal law which included a prohibition. Wait, is that how I say it? Prohibition? Yeah. Which included a prohibition on the manufacture of civilian use of certain semi-automatic firearms that were defined as assault weapons, as well as certain ammunition magazines that were defined as large capacity. The 10-year ban was passed by the U.S. Congress on August 25th, 1994, and was signed into law by President Bill Clinton on September 13th, 1994. The bill applied only to weapons manufactured after the date of the ban's enactment. It expired on September 13th, 2004, in accordance with its sunset provision. Several constitutional challenges were filed against provisions of the ban, but all were rejected by the courts. So it stood up the 10 years it was implemented. There were multiple attempts to renew the ban, but none succeeded. So it made it to 10 years under a number of challenges and held up, but nobody wanted to bring it back. A scientific consensus among criminologists and other researchers is that the ban had little to no effect on overall criminal activity, firearm deaths, or the lethality of gun crimes. Studies have found that the overwhelming majority of gun crimes are committed with weapons which are not covered by the AWB, and that assault weapons are less likely to be used in homicides than other weapons. There is tentative evidence that the frequency of mass shootings may have slightly decreased while the ban was in effect, but research is inconclusive, with independent researchers finding conflicting results. Right? So you have one side saying it significantly went down. You have another side saying it may have went down a little bit, but not significant enough to attribute it to the assault weapons ban. So in other words, it didn't really work. All it did was stop Americans, law-abiding Americans, from buying large capacity magazines and semi-automatic firearms. So to me, it doesn't seem like that was a very good law, especially since nobody wanted to bring it back. So why are we trying to bring it back now? Well, there's a reason that they're trying to bring it back now. There's a reason why we're seeing an uptick in mass shootings in 2022. Now, let me put my tinfoil hat on here for a minute because this rabbit hole might get a little crazy. I'm not saying all of these shootings are staged events. Okay, I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is that it seems very strange to me that the uptick in these events always come when an election is about to happen and when a certain party has a hard time finding their platform that they want to use to get reelected. Now, we've already heard Joe Biden say gun violence should be a top priority for the Democrats in 2022.
I believe the majority of you will act to turn your outrage into making this issue central to your vote. Enough, enough, enough.
Here's the real reason. If they take your guns, right, then you have no way to defend yourself. You become the sheep, they become the wolves. And if the sheep don't have any way to defend off the wolves, then what happens? Well, this happens. 2 wolves responsible for the deaths of 143 sheep in southwestern Idaho. So apparently, these 2 wolves chased these 143 sheep into a gully. And as they were attacking them and trying to, pick one off or whatever, the sheep were trampling over each other. They were piling up on top of each other. And all these sheep either died from the wolves. Most of them died from being trampled or suffocated because they had no way to defend themselves against a wolf. One man with a gun can control 100 without them. Now, I'm paraphrasing the quote a little bit, but I think Vladimir Lenin said that. Really, in the end, what this is about is control. This is about control and about weakening this country. See, people like Joe Biden and the people that run Joe Biden, the global elitists, right? They don't want America to be free. They want us dependent on the government. They want you to stand there with your hand out. They want you to stand there and go, tell me what to do next. Tell me what to do next. Tell me what to do next. They want you subservient so that when they come in to dominate you with their authoritarian type government and their authoritarian type, and when they start to govern you with their authoritarian type laws and rules that you have to follow, but they don't, you'll have no way to fight back. Now, one of the things that old Sleepy Joe said in his speech about the Second Amendment that is wrong is that there were stipulations, regulations, even when it was first created. Like you couldn't own a cannon. Well, that's a flat out lie.
Second Amendment's not absolute. When it was passed, you couldn't own a cannon. You couldn't own certain kinds of weapons. It's just always been limitations.
There were people in the late 1700s, early 1800s who owned frigates and warships with 20, 30, 40 cannons on them. And they were privateers. They were sailors. They were merchants. And these boats had cannons on them. People had cannons at their houses. That is a load of crap. The Second Amendment has 4 words in it that are indisputable, undeniable, and unwavering. Shall not be infringed. Period. So any common sense gun law that you make doesn't need to be a law. It needs to be understood. This is how we handle weapons. This is how you act in public with a firearm. And if you do so otherwise, there are consequences. Someone may shoot you. You may go to jail. A lot of things may happen. But teaching proper gun safety and proper gun etiquette is the way to do this. Not to restrict guns from people. When we see a teenager driving erratically or doing something stupid on the road, do we then adjust the driving age because they're dumb teenagers out there on the road? No. We let them make their mistakes, get in their accidents. It costs them. And as a result, they learn the hard way. Or somebody pulls them aside and says, hey, dummy, quit doing that. And they listen and stop doing it. Either way, we're not changing the rules because of a couple of idiots. A couple of bad apples. And look, you don't need guns to create havoc and kill a lot of people in this country. We had the Waukesha parade attack where a guy drove through a parade with an SUV. Never fired a shot. I can go all the way back to 1995 when Timothy McVeigh blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people. Didn't fire a shot. We didn't ban fertilizer. We didn't ban moving trucks, and we sure as hell didn't ban diesel gasoline. Seems pretty stupid that we're focusing on the gun and not the perpetrator. But if you see it for what it is, it's not that stupid. Then it's not stupid, right? If you see it for what it is, it's not stupid. It is a tactic that is being used by the other side in order to disarm you, scare you, and keep you under control. That's my opinion on the matter. If you have a different opinion, if you think I'm a wackadoo or whatever, leave a comment down below. I really like to engage with my viewers, so feel free to fire away. Also, if you like this video, smash that like button, right? And share this video on all social media platforms. That's the only way YouTube is going to keep giving my videos impressions, is more people watching them. So make sure to hit that share button. I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I will catch y'all later. Peace.